hope for those of you that have joined me, you've got a nice cuppa, something to eat, pen, paper. This is going to be a pretty chilled 3-part series, and I'm so excited. So I was talking to a few hundred women a couple of weeks back about activating your ability to consciously create your reality. And my content was all about your belief systems and your belief structures and your beliefs that are probably buried quite deep, and how most women, maybe men, but most women, seem to come up against some kind of challenge, resistance, internal conflict when they're trying to manifest, right? And this is often because the manifestation techniques, the law of attraction that are taught on a mindset level. They're taught on a positive psychology approach, which is fantastic. And yes, it does completely and utterly work to get you into the state that you want to be in, to have what you desire, to be who you desire. The bit that is missing for the majority of people is that we are carrying beliefs, ours or someone else's, and I'll come on to that shortly, that put us in a direct state of internal conflict when we try and adopt the approach of positive psychology or positive mindset or the positive law of attraction stuff that is the mindset surface level things, because there's so much deeper underneath where we are and who we are. So what I want to talk to you about today, and this is real and serious because I made notes. Those of you that know me know that I don't do notes, especially for trainings. I come in and I talk and I speak from experience about what comes up and the questions and the engagement. So do feel free to still ask me questions, engage with me, tell me about what you understand your beliefs to be. I'd love to have a definition of what your beliefs are. So get those typing in the comments. And for those of you that are watching on the replay, which I know quite a lot of people couldn't make this time, hopefully you'll be able to make the next two sessions tomorrow and the day after live. But if not, hashtag replay, join in, tag me if you have specific questions that you'd like me to get to support you, and I will come in and make sure that I answer those for you. Okay, so the things that I want to cover with you today are: what are your beliefs? Why do we have them? When do we create them? How are they formed? Are they good or bad? Why might you want to change them? And then we're going to have some homework to get you prepared for tomorrow. So you're not going to get everything all in one video. We're going to have a series. So I guess the first thing is to talk about what exactly are your beliefs. Okay, so if you have a definition, if you have an approach to this, please put it in the comments for me. For me, my beliefs are the things that guide my moral compass, my values. They are the things that define who I am. Do I believe I'm a woman? Do I believe I'm a mother? Do I believe that I'm good or bad? Do I believe that I'm an empath? Do I believe that I'm the same as everyone else? I'm average, I'm normal, I'm special, I'm nothing. Do you know what I mean? Hey Lisa, how you going? Your beliefs are the undercurrent, the building blocks that make your identity. They don't just make your identity, they also help you decide what is in alignment with your values and morals, whether or not you should do something or not do something, based on whether or not you believe that it's in support or in contradiction to what you believe to be true. Okay? So your beliefs underpin so much of who you are and what you do. And I think that the majority of people understand that their beliefs are there in the background. I don't think they have the level of awareness that your beliefs are constantly being tested and tapped into every single day. Down to things like, if you don't have a great night's sleep, do you believe that there is an excuse to have coffee in the morning if you don't ordinarily partake? Because you believe that caffeine really does have that much of an impact on you. Hey Simone, how are you? So your beliefs are constantly being tested. Yesterday, I tapped into a belief, and it was a really interesting one and a little bit of a funny one, a quirky one. So I had quite a difficult drop off with my youngest son yesterday. He was feeling as though he wants to stay with me at the moment, and I want to stay with him. I feel the same. But at the same time, I have obligations, I have responsibilities. I have grown to understand that I must undertake the work that I promised to do. And I can't always just be there. Life of an adult. I'm adulting. Yay me. But yesterday, I found it quite difficult. And so I took myself for a treat because I believed that a treat would make me feel better. And actually, there's not many times I treat myself, and that was one of them where I could feel better through doing it. So I tapped into a belief that I don't deserve to treat myself just because, and also that, you know, something potentially has to have gone wrong in order for me to deserve a pick-me-up. Does that make sense? A very minor belief, but it was there. And I had to think, it's almost like I rewarded myself for going through that instance, through tapping into that belief, making it acceptable. So beliefs show up in so many unusual ways that allow you excuses and reasons to do things and not do things, right? So your beliefs have a fundamental impact on who you are, what you do. Hey, Karen. So for those of you that are just joining me, if you have a definition of beliefs, type it in the comments, share it with us, because everyone's definition is slightly different and everyone's interpretation is slightly different. And this is something to be celebrated because we are all different. So for me yesterday, I had strawberry cake and a coffee to wake me up and treat myself. And for those of you that are interested, it was delicious, and I will be doing it again because it was lovely and I really enjoyed it. So this is what our beliefs are. Our beliefs are the fundamental building blocks of who we are. And we do not give them enough attention and enough credit for the impact and the influence that they have in our lives. So why do we have these beliefs? Let's talk about when we create them and why we have them, because the two go very much hand in hand. So the majority of your beliefs are created between the ages of 0 to 7, or at least that's what the majority of research says. Because during those formative belief years of 0 to 7, we are testing our place in the world. We are a new creation. We have been born into a world, and we are figuring out the rules, the boundaries, the expectations, the procedures, the processes, and how we fit in. And we spend the first 7 years of our life trying to fit in, trying to figure out our place in the world. And we do that through rules, boundaries, regulations, which create our beliefs. So we learn what's right and what's wrong between the ages of 0 to 7. Yes, we do grow on that thereafter, but essentially the really foundational core beliefs are being taught to us by our peers. So parents, teachers, friends, TV, social media, influencers. during those formative belief years. And we grasp what really resonates with us and we hold it very tightly because it becomes a way that we can navigate the world. It becomes a way that we understand where we fit and how to behave and who to show up as and what's acceptable and what's deemed acceptable. Yeah, does this make sense? Does this make sense to you? So we create those beliefs to fit in. You know, my children, since they've been born, have been told what to do and what not to do to keep them safe, to keep them secure. Hey, Sam, how you going? To keep them safe, to keep them secure, we have these rules, these boundaries, which create beliefs. Now, some of those beliefs you test out during those 0 to 7 years, some you don't. Either way, they become the train tracks that support everything else that you create thereafter, okay? So you have them to keep you safe, you have them so that you can fit in, you have them to navigate the world and to know what is in alignment with your morals and your values. And throughout life, they're either validated or pushed back on by others. So sometimes they come flaring up in arguments that you have with people, in conflicts that you have with people, in your political opinions. Yeah, all these really, really mega fueled emotional type conversations and stances very much rest on the belief systems that you have created or have been given to you. Because your beliefs are created in mostly two ways, especially during that 0 to 7. So we are learnt to create beliefs based on what we experience and what we hear and deem to be true from others. So there's our two most impressive ways of learning our beliefs. Because again, you have people that you primarily trust and you build that bond with, and therefore you have no like and trust factor of being able to believe in what it is that they tell you that is inherently true. And you hold on to that and it becomes a belief system for yourself. Now, when you experience things, that creates more belief systems, because the more experiences you have, the more you understand this. If this is what I do, this is what I get. If this is what I do, this is what I get. If this is what I do, this is what I get. So these belief systems can be somewhat detrimental, because if you constantly put yourself out there and say that you love someone and the person you keep saying it to doesn't say it back, and they don't say it back, and they don't say it back, you create a belief system that says, I can love someone and I don't get love back. Does that make sense? So the experiences that we have that create the belief systems can sometimes be as detrimental to us as the belief systems that we hear and believe to be true from others. Like, we're stupid, we'll never get anywhere in the world, we're not special. You know, all of these things that we are told or we experience as a result of someone else's model of the world can thoroughly impact us. And it's only later on in life, once we've woken up from the going through the motions routine world, that we say, hang on a second. And you turn up on this kind of webinar and you say, but I don't want to believe that. However, I understand that I do because of what I've experienced, or because of what I heard and then what I experienced, or because of what I experienced and then what I heard. Because for me, I remember very, very clearly thinking that nobody would want to listen to me, that I had nothing to say, I had nothing to share in this world. My story isn't impactful, I'm not very interesting, and I have nothing to share. I have no idea where that belief system came from, but it was there because every time I tried to create a business based on any kind of visibility, or every time I tried to stand up and speak to an audience, I would tell myself these things. I'd focus on, this is going to work for me. I can't do this. No one's interested in listening to me. Like, it was all that internal dialogue and voice just affirming what I actually believed. I had to obliterate that belief in order to change how I felt about approaching those particular instances where that voice would pipe up and that belief system would be there telling me that that wasn't where I was meant to be. Now, I have created a lot of beliefs after the age of 7, and I'm sure all of you have too. So although those formative belief years of 0 to 7 are incredibly important, we still absorb and take on facts, experiences, instances that create further beliefs. The interesting thing is, very, very rarely do we identify the beliefs that we have created and adapt them. So you most likely have belief systems that are in contradiction to one another. Hard to believe. But this is where indecision and the feeling of being really unsure and not able to trust yourself and your judgment comes from. Because oftentimes there are belief systems sitting underneath that are slightly in contrast to one another based on certain experiences. So it's hard to identify which one we want to believe in, if either. And this is where it gets really interesting, because we have the capacity to identify those belief systems and negotiate with them. We actually have the capacity to identify those belief systems and negotiate with them. And when I say negotiate, we'll go into this in the next couple of parts of this series. But the idea is that you can change a belief system if you want to. And that's what we want to do in this series. We want to take a look at the beliefs that we have and whether or not we want to validate them or obliterate them. And I'm so excited to hear some of the beliefs that come up for you and some of those beliefs that you can release and let go of and that help you step further into your authenticity and your uniqueness. Because in the ages of 0 to 7, we're vulnerable, right? We are so vulnerable. It's only now, I think in my 30s, that I started to feel fully empowered, where I started to feel as though I knew enough to really take care of myself. I knew enough to really stand on my own 2 feet and know that I could support myself in all of ways, emotionally, mentally, physically, financially, intellectually. I had a level of confidence and a level of ownership over my own life and my own experiences that enabled me to really stand in my power. And that is when I started to identify my belief systems. That's when I started to identify what was true for me and what wasn't true for me, and what had created certain belief systems and how I was going to overcome those in order to live a really fulfilled life. Because when we're in 0 to 7 and we're vulnerable, you know, we go back to the archaic times of literally our lives are vulnerable. Our existence on the planet is vulnerable. We need to be kept safe in packs and in tribes of people who would allow us to have rules and guidelines and boundaries to keep us safe. It's all about keeping ourselves safe and surviving. When you reach an age or a state of being, more so than age, where you fundamentally trust yourself, you know you're safe. That level of vulnerability is no more. And you can fully affirm and stand in your power to say, this is who I am. I am taking care of me. And there isn't actually anything external that can hurt me in the ways that would hurt me the most. And I know how to keep myself physically survivable and safe in that way. It's all the emotional and mental faculties and capacities where our beliefs can really cause us to want to change So hopefully this is connecting with you. Hey Trish, hope you're well. Let me know if this resonates in terms of the beliefs, the levels of safety. If you're following along and you're feeling as though this is making sense and sinking in for you. So are beliefs good or bad? Well, they're both. Beliefs are really, really important because without them, we wouldn't have a moral compass. If they're ignored, they can be detrimental. If they're not yours, they can be detrimental. So remember when I was telling you earlier about how we absorb and take on beliefs that are created through the tribe of people, our peers that are around us? Because when we're born, again, we're born into a family, we're born into a community, we're born into a system, a society. All of that has an impact on our belief systems, our cultures, our expectations, our religions. All of that creates beliefs. Now, under the very minimal level of circumstances here, I'm not going to go too deeply on this part, but essentially we don't choose that where we're right at that time. Okay, we choose, we're in a family, we're in a unit, we're in a society, and we don't necessarily choose all of that. So we get inundated with less freedom in choosing and testing and asking questions to inform our own experiences and beliefs, because the wider society and tribe keep us in alignment, right? Now, with that comes the interesting fact that some of our beliefs we hold very dear because they're actually really important to people that we care the most about. But they're not necessarily our beliefs. They're somebody else's that we have taken on in order to stay close to them, to be validated by them, to become like them. And this is where those beliefs can have a negative impact on us because they're not ours. They're not our beliefs. They're somebody else's that have been either imposed upon us, absorbed by us, and we're carrying those beliefs. I had a whole heap of beliefs that weren't mine, that I created, that I carried, because I thought if that was how I approached life, I would be validated. I had a huge belief that by being a victim and being a martyr, that eventually someone would see me and say they're there and I'd get what I wanted or get what I needed. Huge belief system. No idea where it came from, assuming it was somebody else's past life stuff, wherever it was. Definitely wasn't something that I had experienced or heard, and it was there, so it wasn't mine. So whether or not I saw it somewhere, picked it up from somebody else, thought it was a great idea, and thought if I can do it that way, I'll get what they get, who knows? Sometimes it's not about the origin of the belief so much, just knowing if it's yours or not is enough. It's actually enough. So, beliefs are good and bad. The most important thing is that we identify them, we notice them, we become aware of them, and then we choose. We choose if they're good for us or if they're negatively impacting us. We choose if they're ours or not, if we want to own them or if they're not ours. Yeah? And that's when we choose to accept or release, validate or obliterate. So why might you want to change them? Why might you want to change your belief systems? Because they're holding you back. So if you're holding on to somebody else's belief, then that could be holding you back to be in alignment with how they want to live their life, not how you do. They might be stopping you from pursuing something that you really love. They might be holding you back from speaking your truth. They might be keeping you feeling small and limited, which also means safe. And it just depends on the belief systems that you have about what is safe for you, what isn't safe for you. How much of your life are you living in alignment with who you are and what you believe to be true, as opposed to what you think other people think of you? Huge shift and a huge change. If you were to live your life thinking that no eyes were on you, nobody minded one way or another what you did because they were too busy judging themselves, not you, I wonder how different your life would be. And this was a question actually that I asked when I was on the stage in front of these women. And I said, if there was no judgment, barriers, fear, or obstacles, where would you be? Who would you be? And what would you be doing? What a freeing question that is. Because if there was no judgment, no fear, no obstacles, barriers, what would you be doing? If you just take all of that off your shoulders, what you believe to be true about all of that, then all of a sudden, it's a free-for-all. You can be, do, have, think, feel anything you want. Yeah? So, has anyone got any questions for me? Does anyone want to talk to me about beliefs, their thoughts, their approaches, anything resonating with you? I would love to have you chat with me. I'm just going to take a sip of tea whilst anyone types anything. I was far too excited today about doing this that I only had one coffee this morning, and I thought I probably better not have another one. So I've got myself a green tea instead. Okay. So we've talked so far about what your beliefs are, why you have them, when and how they're created. Are they good or bad? And we've talked about why you might want to change them. Does anyone here have a belief they want to change? Have you identified things already that you want to change? Maria is saying it's hard when you build a belief based on trust from others and then that trust is betrayed. Yes. Yeah. I think there was a post in the Conscious Business Circle earlier, wasn't there? And I said about who are you trying to change? And, the only person we have any domain over in order to change is ourselves. And if we have a belief based on trust from others, then that trust is betrayed. Then how does that impact the belief that you have? Does it obliterate the entire belief for you? Or does it just make you understand that you can remain true to speaking your truth, being honest and open, allowing people to see your vulnerabilities? But again, you have no domain over how they choose to embrace or betray the trust. So really, everything that you do in that instance has to be given freely without expectation, understood that it's a way of being for you, not for others, and that if you want to live your life feeling that you can trust, then that isn't related to how people validate or obliterate or show you their belief of what trust is. Does that make sense? So nothing in our belief system can be relied upon externally. It's only ever internal. So it has to be that approach of, I want to speak my truth. I have a belief that if I speak my truth, people will ridicule me. But I have a belief that I have to be honest and open and truthful. So it's about understanding the conflict between those two beliefs and adapting the way of understanding that ridicule says more about the other person than it does about us. And do we honestly believe we're going to be ridiculed if we speak our truth? If I speak my truth with kindness and compassion and from a personal perspective, then I'm communicating effectively, mindfully, with kindness. And therefore that is speaking my truth. That's approaching that situation. Yeah. But to be honest, it isn't the trust that's betrayed. It's the person. Yeah. It's hard when you build a belief based on trust from others. I think it's that if someone, I remember my nan would always say that if anyone said anything to her, it would go no further. And that's what trust was to her. That anybody could have a confidential conversation with her and it would never go anywhere, ever. She'd never speak about it again, not even to the person that spoke to her about it, unless they raised it. But she was that locked door. You could say anything and it was just done. Now, obviously, if she spoke to somebody else about something personal to her, she had a belief that that's how trust worked. And if somebody were then to, say, betray that trust, it would be because they share what she confidentially said to them. But maybe they didn't know that she was confidentially speaking because they didn't have the same belief that that's how a conversation goes. Everything is confidential and trustworthy. Do you see what I mean? So that part, Dan, I don't know if that was truth, but my understanding would be that, and that's why my mum always said to me, Alison, when you have a conversation with somebody and you want it to be in confidence, just say, this is between us. You know, that's it. You just have to just let people know where your barriers and your boundaries are. And if that person breaks it, then it's the person, not your truth and belief system of trust. It's the person, it's the other person. So it's not a proof thing from others either. This is all about your inherent systems, how you deem to want to behave, respond, and be in the world. And as a result, how you then show up, because that's what your beliefs are. So if you have a belief that's based on trust from others, then really identify what it is that allows you to feel and evoke trust within yourself, for yourself, despite others. What makes you feel trust? What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel trustworthy? What makes you feel confidential? Yeah? Okay. So, homework. So, how do you start to identify these beliefs? Because that's the most important piece. You can't change a belief if you don't know it's there. So, tonight, today, tomorrow, we are going to start noticing some beliefs. And how do you go about doing that? Oh, it's gone all dark. Notice your beliefs. So when something happens, you know how I said earlier that you have these emotional situations where it's very obvious where your beliefs sit. Yeah, political stances, conflicting conversations or discussions. When you feel as though something has not gone right for you, there's a really good clue there that a belief system has been identified and something isn't in alignment. So that's when you need to ask yourself the questions of, what do I believe to be true about this? What do I believe to be true about this? Ask yourself that question over the next few days. You know, when you make a decision, what do I believe to be true about this? What do I believe to be true about having a coffee and cake first thing in the morning? What do I believe to be true about timekeeping? You know, I have a belief that I'm always late. I accept it because I always am. I know it's very frustrating for some people who are not always late. So I always let people know that this is my personality and it's not intentionally to hurt people, but I am always late. One thing crops up, something. And I have a belief, so it's true. And it does tend to happen because I have a belief, because I've accepted it, as opposed to trying to fight it and always be early and always be on time. Because I find I'm in resistance and conflict to that. There's a part of my personality here that is, I'm always, it's easier for me to be 5 minutes late than it is for me to be 5 minutes early. Go figure. So I want you to notice your beliefs and write them down. I want you to write all of these beliefs down. So whenever you make a decision, whenever something good happens, something challenging happens, I want you to say to yourself, what do I believe about this to be true? What do I believe about this to be true? Tap in on what those beliefs could be. They might be crazy beliefs, and it's perfectly fine. It doesn't matter what they are. We just want to get them up. We want to get them noticed. We want to become aware of them. The sooner we're aware of them, the sooner we can validate or obliterate. So notice your beliefs. Ask questions of them. What do I believe to be true about this? And then ask yourself the next question. Are they mine or are they someone else's? Are they mine or are they someone else's? And what do I believe to be true about that? So if they're not yours, what do I believe to be true about that? Well, I believe that it came from my mum, my father, my grandparents, my brother, my sister, my auntie, my first school teacher, because of an incident or an experience or a situation that happened, right? So that's the homework. Get into it. Start a list. These are my beliefs. These are my beliefs. What do I believe to be true about that? Is it mine or someone else's? What do I believe to be true about that? And just ask yourself those questions. Let's get some of these beliefs come to the surface. Let's get them written down. Let's identify them. And if you're not sure about the belief, what do I believe about that belief? Ask yourself those questions. Go deep, the 5 whys. Why? Because the more questions you ask, the deeper rooted you can go, and the more it becomes in terms of creating the real root of that belief, the reason it's there, what it's done for you. And these are other questions you can ask. You can go deeper and say, how does this belief support me? Because everything that is in your world is there for your highest good. And that's the most important thing to understand. It might be detrimental to you on a day-to-day basis in the way that it limits you or holds you back. But I can guarantee you that the highest intention of every belief that you have is to keep you safe and is your best. We just have to retrain your brain fundamentally to understand that your best is better. Yeah? So, I hope this has been beneficial. I hope you have enjoyed day 1 of our belief mini-series. I will be coming to you tomorrow for day 2.